how old do you feel?
Oh, that's interesting.
How old do you feel?
I mean, for me, probably 32.
32. How old do you feel?
I'm going to say probably in my 30s as well, early 30s. I don't feel like I'm 40, going to be 42 soon. I definitely, I don't feel that at all. So
yeah, I got 3 little kids at home. They keep me young. I'm not feeling 41. Okay?
I think this is arguable.
Yeah,
I think mine are actually aging me, to be honest.
It could go either way.
Hey, and welcome to the Forties Formula, your go-to place for insightful discussions on navigating the 40s and thriving in this transformative decade.
We're your hosts, Jasmin and Amanda, 2 women that are passionate about exploring the challenges and adventures that come with turning 40 and what lies ahead.
Today we are talking about a topic that's gaining a lot of attention, not just here in Singapore, but also globally, and that's longevity. Singapore is being recognised as a potential blue zone 2.0, and where people are not only living longer, but are also thriving well into their later years. Today we have Professor Andrea Maier, who is going to be talking to us about healthy ageing. Professor Maier, we often hear the terms lifespan and health span when people talk about longevity. Can you start by explaining what the difference is between the two?
Sure. Thank you for having me, by the way.
It's our pleasure.
Lifespan is the number of years somebody is alive. So that's our life expectancy. In Singapore, that's at the moment 84, a little bit more than 84 years. So it's quite high comparative to the world. But the health span is much, much lower. And the health span is the number of years you are either feeling healthy, you don't have age-related diseases, and you can really enjoy life to the full purpose. So it depends a little bit on the definition of health span. So at the moment, the gap between health span and lifespan in Singapore is accounted for 11 years. But if you say, okay, health span really stops when somebody has the first age-related disease, then think about in the 50s and the 40s, you have the first chronic disease, then the span is much, much broader. So it's really about how healthy are you and how long do you live.
So people talk about chronological aging versus biological aging. How would you define the two? And is there a way to, or what is the way to measure your biological age?
Yeah, so the chronological age is very, very easy. So we know.
So you take the day you were born.
Yes, but then it's mathematics. Sometimes it's difficult. How old I am? Yes. So, but just look at your passport. But if you're looking at people in the 40s, 50s, or even in the 20s, then you see that they are looking differently. They are acting differently. Their behaviors are differently. But especially if you're looking at functions in the organs, they are different. Somebody can age much, much faster compared to the other. So and that really determines the biological age. Depends on the pace of aging, how old you are biologically. So there can be a gap in a 40-year-old being 3 years, 6 years, being younger and older. So there's a huge variation. And we now know that the variation not only starts at the age of 60 or 70 or 80 when it's very obvious, but it starts already to be seen at the age of 20. So we are aging very, very diverse, and that then determines our biological age.
And when you say the variation, right? So what exact markers are we looking at in terms of biological age?
There's not one marker of biological age, because if you're looking at a group of individuals being 40, they are aging differently. And then you are looking at one individual, even that individual is aging quite differently if you're looking at different organ systems. We have a beautiful body, and in our body we have lots of organs, we have lots of cells, and all these cells and the organs are aging at different pace. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? If you are 40, could be biologically 44, but a driver of that being 44 biologically or not 40 could be because of your heart aging or the brain aging or the muscle aging. So the pace of aging within our body can be quite different. And that's also the reason why we have to measure all the organ systems within our body. Think about measuring the strength of muscles, hand grip strength, how good you can stand out of a chair, how good you are in reflecting and memorizing things, so your cognition or your heart, what your blood pressure, for example, is. So we really have to have a whole body approach and know where the reason is why we are biologically older compared to our chronological age. Or if you are very positive, as I am, you're biologically younger.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So for me, I started experiencing perimenopausal symptoms at age 36, which probably means that my biological age of my ovaries was obviously much older, probably 10 years. And at that time, I really did feel like I had fast-forwarded my life by 10 years. And I think that was really when I started thinking about longevity and wanting to be around for my children who were very young at the time. Now, are there any ways in which women who are, going through this transitional period, able to look at ways in which they can optimize their health and help optimize their vitality as they're aging through their 40s and beyond?
Yeah, sure. So, but we very often talk about menopause, perimenopausal symptoms, postmenopausal symptoms. I think very importantly that we are aging from conception onwards.
Of course,
also,
yes.
Also as a woman. Like males also do that, but they don't have this rapid decline of hormones. So that's more a steady decline. I'm not sure what's better, by the way, if you have the rapid one.
A slow and steady or,
Yes.
or fall off the cliff.
I don't know, but we are aging constantly. So I really want to draw the attention to all the ages and all the periods of life we are going through. So I think that's important because what holds for perimenopausal women and postmenopausal women holds also for much, much earlier stages in life. Of course, we know that the estrogen levels, for example, they decline because our oocytes, so how many eggs we have in our ovaria, they are declining. So we now know what's happening. And unfortunately in women, there's one organ system really failing quite heavily at certain ages. Most of the times it's in the middle of 45 to 55 years of age, and then inducing menopause. Mm-hmm. We have another organ, and that's the thymus, where we are producing lots of immune cells, and we need that to be really reactive to, for example, viruses and bacteria. So we really need that. And that thymus is failing much, much, much earlier. So we have already two organ systems failing. Of course, we are possibly not made to live 300 years on Earth. But coming back to the ovaria, yes. So the first thing I would say, when somebody is 30, 35, measure your hormone levels, because then you know where you are tracking and track them. Because then we can predict when the failure of that organ actually happens, and then we can anticipate. So very often we think about perimenopausal symptoms. Oh, now it starts. No, it started already. Mm-hmm. And then it fails, and then we are seeing it much too late. So now we really have a thought process within the medical science where I'm coming from. Shouldn't we really track women much, much earlier and men much, much earlier to see what the trajectory is, to then see when really, for example, hormone replacement therapy should be started, and not just when you feel, hey, something is going on and you already have symptoms. It might be too late. And of course, it's not too late. We can still act, but it might be even better to start much, much earlier.
Yeah. When would you say would be a good time to start tracking and seeing where you are in order to know how to look after
what
yourself.
Your trajectory decline might look like.
Exactly.
Yes. I don't want to cross any barriers, but I really think that we should track as soon as possible. Yeah. We don't have much evidence with regards to tracking children, but we now, for example, know of the GUSTO study, which is a huge population study of children who are followed from even before birth, their mothers were followed. We now know that tracking children even might have lots of information how our life later like 80 years later might look like. So I think tracking is very important. In tracking, that's what we do when a child is born, even before a child is born. What do? We are looking at the growth.
Yeah.
We are looking at the development. We are looking for, hey, is that child really developing well? And then at a certain time, most of the times, depends on the country where you are, at the age of 6 or 13, then we are stopping tracking. So what we really should do, and then we are tracking, by the way, again at the age of 40, 50, 60, when we are screening for cancer and high blood pressure and diabetes. But we are just neglecting the time period between stopping tracking and starting tracking again. So in my view, we should track constantly. And very importantly, now we have technology to do that. We use smartphones. We are using smart watches, smart rings. We can track even just our weight and see how we are tracking in terms of our health behaviors. So tracking always for everyone, in my view, if you use the data appropriately and if you know what that means, the tracking, what you do with it.
Yeah, so what biomarkers should one be tracking and what information should they be looking out for?
Very easy. Everybody hopefully has a weighing a scale at home. Like, track your weight. Like, don't look at your clothes, because the clothes industry is adapting based on where you live.
Yeah, and especially in Asia, don't look at your clothes,
Yeah,
right? Because you might, if you're a Western body in Asia, you might be an XXL. If you're a Western body in America, you might be a triple X or small.
Yes.
So, real rough to look at the clothing label.
Yeah, but very often people say, okay, that's fine. But put on your clothes from 30 years ago. Do you still fit?
There you
or
go.
20 years ago if you're 40? And it's quite difficult. So weight, but also track your blood pressure. It's very easy to track the blood pressure. Track your glucose. Track your motions, track your feelings. So we can all track without having much technology around, without investing much in terms of costs. So very often you get the argument, but we cannot
Can't
do
afford
that.
it. Yeah.
But that's not true. Because even how do you feel? Do you give 8 or 6 out of 10? Is already tracking how you are doing. And these kind of skills are all validated embedded into questionnaires where we actually say, hey, it's going well or not well. And it's very sensitive. The first tracking question I would say, how old do you feel?
Oh, that's interesting.
How old do you feel?
I mean, for me, probably 32.
32. How old do you feel?
I'm going to say probably in my 30s as well, early 30s. I don't feel like I'm 40, going to be 42 soon. I definitely, I don't feel that at all. So
yeah, I got 3 little kids at home. They keep me young. I'm not feeling 41.
I think this is arguable.
Yeah,
I think mine are actually aging me, to be honest.
it could go either way. So Jasmin, I don't know about you, but lately I've been struggling to keep up with the grocery shopping. Between work and the kids and everything in between, it feels impossible to plan healthy meals without constantly running to the store.
Oh my God, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I've got everything and then bam, something's missing. So that's why I've started using the Meat Club.
Okay, tell me more. This sounds like a total lifesaver.
They deliver high quality meats, fish, and fresh fruit and veggies straight to your door. No more last minute grocery runs or stressing about what to cook. And everything is top notch to help you create a healthy and balanced diet for yourself and your family. They even have a flexible subscription service too.
Okay, I just had a look and that subscription service sounds amazing. You can get up to 15% off your basket, free mints for life on orders over $100. Plus, they offer over $160 worth of exclusive perks and give you the flexibility to edit your cart or change your delivery day anytime.
Just head over to the Meat Club and use our code TFF12 for 12% off your first order.
Just visit themeatclub.com.sg and give them a follow on Instagram @themeatclubsg for recipes, updates, and special offers.
Right, now let's get back to the chat.
Individuals who say that they are feeling 3 years younger compared to their chronological age should just ask the question, how do you feel? Don't think about it. Yeah. How do you feel? People who say they are 3 years younger have roughly 40% less likelihood to die in a period of 6 to 10 years.
Just from that qualitative measure.
It's just, how do you feel? Because looking into it, if you say I'm younger, you know what you're struggling with. If people are saying I'm as old as I am, that's not much benefit. People who are saying, I'm a year older, that's a very, very bad sign.
Yeah. And when you do ask that question, when you're actually interacting with patients, do you get a lot in that category where they're like, I feel 55 and they're 40?
Sure. But we also do that for research, and it's very predictive for future outcomes. Yeah.
So interesting.
I'm glad we both feel younger.
Yeah,
Talking about, you said measuring your weight, and I guess weight correlates to diet. Is there any sort of specific recommendations that you have with regards to diet that can help with, I guess, healthy aging?
Yeah, first of all, there are lots of myths with regards to diet, and there are lots of different diets. I think the only thing we know at this moment in time, which is quite clear, that a Mediterranean diet is very, very good. But if we are unpacking it a little bit, we are eating every day. Most of the people eat every day. So we should all be experts in what we eat. And if we are looking at food and food ingredients, we have nutritional factors in there which we need, micronutrients. Think about vitamins, zinc. We all need the essential things, including the essential amino acids, for example. So we have nutrients. And nutrients we put together into a diet. For example, a Mediterranean diet. In this diet, we are putting into dietary pattern and habits, because even if you're eating a Mediterranean diet, you can do intermittent fasting. So you're not eating regularly in the morning or in the afternoon, dependent on what kind of pattern you have. And I think if we are looking at the nutrients, we just have to make sure that the quality of nutrients we are getting are super good. So really think about your vegetable, fruit intake, think about your fiber intake. Where do you get the fibers from? And then think about the diet you have. There's nothing against sometimes a French fries or whatever you love to eat. Yeah. But if you're making sure that you get the nutrition ingredients and you are putting them together and you have color on your plate, that's very important. In portions that you are not growing. And then the patterns and how much and when is a different story. So this is what everybody should do. And then the question is, how could you elevate that experience? So what do you need?
Oh my God, Amanda, have you heard? Little Farms now has 6 restaurants all across Singapore, including their all-day dining concept in Sentosa.
Oh, yes, I heard. And I love that each restaurant offers a consistent menu and dining experience while also featuring exclusive dishes that reflect the unique vibe of the neighborhood they're in.
Little Farms is definitely my go-to brunch place. And honestly, I love their coffee.
Oh, and you know that they're open all day, right? Their new dinner menu has me drooling. We're talking dishes like rendang lamb shank, organic chicken and cauliflower rice, and sesame tuna tataki with soba, and much more.
And let's not forget about their weekly restaurant deals. They've got 1-for-1 on small plates every Tuesday, happy hour on Thursday, and my personal favourite, kids eat free on Sundays. Now, Little Farms just needs to get to Bukit Timah.
Plus, we have an exclusive offer for our listeners. Save 10% off your online shop at littlefarms.com with the code 40s10 when you spend a minimum of $100.
Now, back to the chat.
So would I, for example, recommend to measure the vitamin D level or vitamin B level or whatever, zinc levels? There is no evidence that knowing these kind of levels might help in altering the diet and what you need. But very importantly now, we have much, much more experience also with measuring the microbiome. So what is that? That's all the viruses and bacteria and everything living nicely, hopefully, in your gut.
Hopefully harmoniously.
Yeah.
And these 2 kilograms of just your friends, they really determine what you ate and maybe also should determine what you are going to eat. Because what you eat is really important for these gut microbiomes and how old you maybe feel and how much disease risk you have. So I think knowing what you eat, very important, make it colorful. And if you want to elevate it, test yourself, including the microbiome.
So what you're saying is that keeping it majority like natural, healthy, unprocessed food, and then allowing yourself the occasional treat. And so that you are then helping feed your gut microbiome. And the gut microbiome is actually what is determining your risk for disease.
Yeah. I think very importantly, we now know out of big cohort data, we have so many data, what a healthy diet is. There was one study I would like to mention from a consortium really looking at what could be the optimal diet. And they did it for different diet patterns in different groups of ethnicities, because Chinese, Indian, Malay, they all have so different, or Caucasian food is so different. And really analyzing if a population would switch from one to the other, just changing by the grams you're eating every day. Think about you're changing from 50 gram of red meat to 0 gram of red meat, or white meat, or a little bit more legumes, or a little bit more fruit or vegetables. Then you can calculate how much that would mean, how much longer you would live.
Wow.
Which is great. Yeah. So that's an app being available, Food for Life, being downloadable, where everybody can say, okay, this is what I'm eating at this moment in time. If I would switch a little bit based on how old somebody is, where somebody lives, and what the ethnicity is, how much likelihood do I have that I would have 6 more years, 8 more years, etc., going from a normal, culturally acceptable diet, so just a normal one, to an optimal one. And that study actually showed that if somebody is 80 and would switch the diet from a normal diet to an optimal diet, would even have an increase of life expectancy of 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
At the age of 60, it would be 8 to 10 years. And at the age of 20, that would be 12 to 13 years.
Wow.
So back to your point of catching it earlier, right, or making changes earlier will actually really extrapolate the effects of healthier aging over time.
On the other hand side, I think it's never too late. So very often I hear, I am 80. What can I change? Like, okay, but 3 more very likely healthier life years. Whoa, this is something. Because if you're thinking at the age of 80, the population average 4 or 5 more years, adding a couple of more
matters a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, the impact, the numerical impact may be smaller, but kind of the, the psychological impact of knowing you could just have one, because isn't that what we all say as we approach and think about our own mortality? If only I had 1 more year, 2 more years. What if you could? Even at that age, just by making some of the changes you're describing. Yeah. It really is powerful.
And of course, it depends on what kind of quality of life somebody already has and how somebody's also sticking to the diet. Because very importantly, we very often talk about what we eat. I think very important is how do you eat? With whom do you eat? Because it's one of the social moments in our lives. Because very often we not say, do we do this together? No, we always plan, but what we do together is eating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would say have that social connectivity and contact, and then ask yourself, what should we eat together to be healthier for longer together?
Oh, I love that. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Because
very Blue Zone.
Yeah, exactly that. So physical activity is obviously another element that is important when it comes to longevity, healthy aging. What would you say are the most beneficial forms of exercise or movement for women who are in their 40s or even obviously earlier? What should we be focusing on?
If we are looking at physical performances, what we need is strength, we need endurance, and we need balance. Mm-hmm. Very often the last one is forgotten. Yeah. We have to keep ourselves upright. Yes. Because you can be very strong and you can have lots of endurance, but if you're missing the balance, it's not good. So training the balance from very early life is super important, and not being trained heavily. So strengths, super important. We have sarcopenia, which occurs very often at the age of 60, 70 onwards. 1/3 of the population is suffering from it. So sarcopenia is nothing else than a low muscle mass and muscle strength. How does it occur? It's the aging process, and very importantly, immobilization. So we are not moving. So immobilization is not meaning, okay, I put you in the bed and you're not allowed to move, but having so much sitting time and not moving, not getting the steps. So sarcopenia is really importantly being associated with just a bad lifestyle. But biological factors that we are really aging are also contributing to that. To avoid that, what can you do? You need strengths. So heavy lifting every day is important. So if you go and do your groceries, do not get a car, but just heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Why do you
Hold
have
the
to go?
basket.
Why do you have to go to the gym? Like, it's fine to go to the gym because you really get the strengths. But we can also include that into our daily life. I think endurance is also very important. I'm not sure if you know your VO2 max. You don't need to know it, but just climb 10 stairs and you will see how exhausting that is. And if you're faster, then it's better.
Yeah.
So just trial it. Very often we are taking the lift. I also did that while coming to the studio.
Love it.
Don't do it. Just go and walk.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And do it. Very often here also, okay, I don't like the treadmill. I don't like the biking. Okay, you don't have to do it. Just avoid the lift. The third thing is the balance. Trial it yourself. Stand up first. Don't do it now.
Yeah.
But imagine standing up, closing the eyes, the feet next to each other, and just standing there. That's very easy. And now do it on one leg, closing your eyes, and just standing and standing. And now imagine as a woman in the 40s, put on your high heels. Yes, standing. Closing the eyes on one leg and stand. If you can do it, your balance is good.
How long do we need to do it for? Because I think I'm going to test this later. What would be a good amount of time?
You should be able to do it at least 3 minutes. If you do 3 minutes, you cannot do it longer. But then also the strength component comes in because you have to really work lots with your muscles to keep yourself upright. Even that balance test is already a muscle strength training.
It's funny. I'm a devotee of Bikram yoga. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that style of yoga.
No.
But long story short, what you just described is literally the progression of the poses.
Yeah.
So you stand toes and heels together, you stand on one leg, and then you stand on that same leg with your toe. It's exactly that progression. And that form of yoga is has a little, not as much research as would make it validated, but there's some research that suggests that particular style of yoga is really, really helpful for older folks especially.
And just to be clear, it's not so that I promote to wear high heels.
Yes, exactly. This is the imaginary high heel of strength and balance, guys. This is not your actual.
Damn it! I was about to go out and be like, I need a new pair of
heels for my longevity.
So there's been a lot of talk about supplements, anti-aging supplements. There's NMN, NR. I've heard about urolithin A, which is obviously a type of postbiotic. What are your thoughts on these, and do you recommend any of them?
We do lots of research. I'm working at the National University of Singapore, so I do lots of research, actually testing of supplements work. Supplements can be quite crucial to alternate the aging process. So I think they are very potent. They can be very, very, very good agents. However, what we don't know yet, who should take them and which ones are the most appropriate ones. If you're thinking about the evolution of aging research to really understand why we age, and that we can now try to intervene with the aging process, supplements are around for, I think, 3 decades. Think about multivitamins and multiminerals, but the more specific ones, really antagonizing the aging process, are there for maybe 10 years, like resveratrol. Don't take resveratrol, by the way, but just as an example.
I was going to go drink some more red wine.
No, what you can actually see and buy online or you see in a store. So there's lots to uncover here because supplements are ingredients most of the times which we can find already in food. Think about NMN you mentioned, so nicotinamide mononucleotide and its precursors. You can find it in, for example, in cucumbers or so lots of food. So most of these active ingredients are just being put into a pill, and we find them in food because you should eat huge amount of it to get actually the level you would need. So the question is, how much do you need and when do you need it and who does it? Who needs it? And when should you actually stop? And we are at the very, very early stages to understand actually the use of supplements. I will give you an example. Who's taking a multivitamin and mineral pill? Many people, roughly 50% of the Singaporeans take supplements, and very often it's a multivitamin mineral pill. Should we take them? So just a year ago, the first very good study was published showcasing that only individuals in their 70s who have already cognitive complaints might have a positive benefit of multivitamin and mineral pills. We don't know if the rest needs it.
Yeah.
Where's the beneficial outcome? Because normally, if you're in your 30s and your 40s, 50s, if you're eating properly, so coming back to this colorful food plate, should be sufficient. And even it might do harm. There's now a study showcasing that if you're looking at individuals who are starting with multivitamin mineral pills, they have a higher mortality rate in the first years. So they are dying earlier compared to the ones who do not take it. This is all not the best amount of evidence because it's not randomized, so we do not know what kind of factors there are. But what I want to say is we only know in a tiny amount of individuals that it actually makes sense to take it every day, sometimes twice a day, and especially also to put your money on it.
That was it, yeah.
Yes,
Back
so
to
why would you?
Yeah.
So we are now doing a study testing multivitamin mineral pills in 40 to 60-year-olds who are biologically older compared to their chronological age, really showcasing, okay, does it make sense? And what kind of vitamin level should you actually reach to say, now I'm optimal and I cannot reach that with food. So now I'm just talking about normal pills we already are used for 3 decades to buy over the counter. If you're now talking about supplements which are anti-aging, and you already mentioned urolithin A and MN or alpha-ketoglutarate, etc., spermidine, fisetin, there are so many. We now translate the knowledge we have from animal models. Very often we see in newspapers, if you're taking this, you will live 30% longer. But this is in mice, and this is in flies. This is not in humans. So we had the early stages to do studies in humans to actually see if it works and in whom it works. So I would not recommend to anybody to just go out there to the internet or going into a store and buy something because you do not know if it's for you. There's another point I would like to make. We just tested supplements on the quality. So what I did, I started 2 years ago. I bought lots of supplements, NMN, urolithin A, and I brought them to a lab and I said, test if actually the active ingredient NMN and urolithin A is inside. What did we find? 1/3 of the supplements had the amount inside, 2/3 not.
Wow.
1/3 had nothing inside, which means it's not only is this supplement for you, but also now the question, what, if it's for you, should you buy? So my advice really is, because these can be so potent molecules, they can really interfere in how you feel, leave that to a healthcare professional. And their healthy longevity medicine kicks in, so the new speciality to really treat aging as a disease, wanting to optimize the body, that you're feeling better, you have more likelihood to live longer. Hopefully you're also happier. Happiness is difficult to achieve sometimes. But at least your body is functioning better. And then use these kind of potent molecules in the right dosage, for the right timing, and with the right measurement to actually test if it helps.
So to hear you clearly, don't just go throwing your money at supplements. Throw your money at knowing your numbers properly, and then if you need supplements, but it may be as simple a solution as just directing your diet toward specific foods. So in fact, you can get a lot more value from actually knowing yourself rather than just kind of shot in the dark supplements at the local shop.
Absolutely.
What would you say are the 3 key lifestyle habits that one should focus on if they're unable to spend money on getting tested, supplements if needed? What could people do in something that they could do practically at home without having to really sort of think about it too much?
Yeah, what are the freebies?
I think we already mentioned them. Track yourself. Make a story out of yourself. So measure your weight, measure your happiness, measure when you're reacting to what. I think if you want to invest money into something, buy a tracker. It can be just a tracker of the number of steps, which is very cheap.
Yeah, $10.
But even less.
Yeah, that's true. Shopee or, from Asia, probably even less.
But if you have a little bit more money, invest in a smart device. Most of the times we have smartphones. They can be connected now to the smart devices, rings, watches, etc. So it's so important to know who you are. And starting with that before doing any interventions, already knowing why are you grumpy at this moment in time. So sometimes I ask my husband, they say, maybe you didn't sleep well. And then having this number and actually seeing it, why, alternating a little bit what you do in the evening, having a better sleep quality, not only makes him happy, but also me happy, makes the environment happy.
Yeah.
And it's not that my husband sleeps not well, but it's about knowing what's going on. Even then, if you would like to invest a little bit more, like diagnosing or testing what glucose levels are doing, especially if we are looking at food habits. So we now have technology like continuous glucose measuring systems. We have the technologies measuring our microbiome. So if you really want to go into that deeper level, do it. Knowing what, for some people don't like it, some people like, but knowing what your genome is, what kind of book, what kind of letters do you have inside of your cells? So what is your potential and how do you use it? I think that's hugely nice. And that knowing yourself, tracking yourself, I would say is much, much more important than starting just blindly whatever intervention.
So everything is individualized depending on the kind of person you are. So, if you're not sleeping well, then that is what you should be focusing on. If you're not eating well, then that is what you should be focusing on.
Yeah. But you have to understand maybe that you are not eating well is the reason that you are not sleeping well. So very often that happens. So a big meal at night might likely be leading to not much deep sleep and in REM sleep in the later night. So of having this one drink because you socialize, that's fine, all good, but know what the consequence is. So that's most important.
Yeah. And you mentioned it's a snowball effect, right? So then, I didn't sleep well because of my glass of alcohol. Then I wake up, I'm less likely to exercise because I didn't sleep well last night, and then I didn't exercise. And then, it's like you throw in the towel and you start making unhealthy choices. It's a snowball effect. And I think you're absolutely right that if you think about, if you can identify kind of all the weaknesses in your own pattern, it's so much more powerful than, like you said, just trying to figure out what vitamin you might need.
Yeah. Let's turn it around, knowing all the strengths in yourself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that.
And building on those strengths.
Yes.
Oh, Professor Maier, it's been amazing having you here and just hearing about what you're doing and how we can optimize ourselves. But before we finish up for today, we do have one question that we tend to ask all of our guests, and that is, what's your Forties formula? What piece of advice or knowledge would you like to share to our listeners on ways in which they can optimize their 40s?
Write your own book and your own story. I think, and while enjoying doing that, be mindful of your surrounding, still making friends. I think in the 40s, it's as in every stage of life, it's a special life, really, as a woman. So not excluding the men in the 40s, really knowing what your hormone levels are doing, tracking yourself and being aware and be kind of yourself.
Now, being kind, I think that's key,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that is a key one. And I think a lot of women forget that in their 40s,
Yes.
that while we're trying to optimize and longevity and do our best, also be kind to yourself in the process. Thank you so much, Dr. Andrea. It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want more from the 40s Formula? Every Friday, we'll be sending our Foreplay Friday newsletter direct to your inbox with 4 hot topics, tips, and trends personally curated by Jasmin and Amanda.
All you need to do is visit thefortiesformula.com and sign up with your email address. That's the FORTIES formula.com. Guys, you know how much we love coffee. And if you want to show us some love, you know you can get us one.
Just visit buymeacoffee.com/the40s Formula. Cheers. Before we go, please remember to hit subscribe and take a moment to support the 40s Formula by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Your reviews will help us to reach more people and allow us to continue to bring valuable content. It should only take a moment, and it's a free way for you to support the show.
You can also stay updated with the 40s Formula by following us on Instagram at the 40s Formula, all one word. We share behind-the-scenes insights, episode updates, and much more, so please be sure to hit that follow button.
We appreciate your time and support. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll be back next week for more empowering conversations with inspiring guests.
Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Sorry, I started...
9:59, Professor Mike.
Keeping an eye on that.
No, I was I told you 10 and we got you at 9:59.
There was so much more I wanted to ask, but I thought, right, no, need to.
Yeah. And what you delivered was really, really helpful. I think it's going to be so accessible for the women that are listening and what they need to hear, right? Which is not everything has to be super expensive and super intense. It's like just take those first few steps and start employing that and build on the good.
Yeah.
And make friends.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Well,
Wonderful.
thank you so much.
So much.